Hi, I'm Embers, he, him.
I'm El Ninja Cupcake, she, her.
I'm Leap, he, him.
I'm John, I go by Coffee Robot, and I'm he, him.
And welcome to Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions and retrieve the treasure of wisdom.
Wisdom.
I've never gotten to do
Dale.
that. That was so good. Welcome, friends. We are doing a live episode, so everyone who's on CageCon right now, we've literally been saying this for like 15 minutes, but if you are listening for the first time from your earphones, welcome to our live episode for CageCon, which has happened previously. We are creating two unique, nutrient, hilarity-rich episodes where we are tackling a couple of two very different topics. And Best Team, which is the first team, is getting to begin by talking about something that is near and dear to all of our hearts, and that is fandoms. That is fan art, and basically people who love something so dearly, they just have to use their talents to show their thanks by making something. And so...
Bananas.
But oh no!
I just noticed that Team 2, one of them is having a drinking game, so if we could get her smashed before the episode, I'd be okay.
Oh, okay, cool. So if we say bananas a bunch, you might have a drunk checker later to deal with.
When are these episodes coming out as well? It might be the case that we come out first, and then a week later we've gotten someone drunk.
I would like if we're not going to say who it is. I kind of hope the listeners need to guess, and I also kind of hope that it's very obvious by the time that happens.
Well, I mean, Jay's drunk 24/7, so it's definitely not him.
Yeah, no, but I kind of hope this game continues so that when they listen to it again and they're hearing us say bananas for like 20 times, the game just continues no matter where they are.
What was that word again?
Oh, it's bananas.
Oh,
Thanks
bananas,
for asking,
right.
John.
Oh, that yellow, weird-shaped phallic fruit?
That's the one. What is it? I believe it's
bananas?
Yeah. Now, let's get back on track so we don't give our friend alcohol poisoning right off the hop. And we normally start our games or our sessions with a dungeon crawl. We are going to, so for anyone who hasn't listened to us, a dungeon crawl is where we talk about the things that are new to us or new in general about Dungeons and Dragons and the things that we love. And one of the focuses that I'm encouraging today is talking about any kind of art that we love.
Yeah, I can start you off.
I love it. I love it.
So for those who don't listen to our podcast regularly, I am in the fortunate position of being very new to the world of Critical Role, and I'm also an almost exclusive audio listener. So I am a straight up podcast consumer. I don't do much video on demand. So I have been going and trying to catch up from the first episode of the second campaign of Critical Role. I am up to episode 20. I know main spoilers, but there's a lot that surprises me every episode, for which I am thankful. But it has also given me a window into the world that is Critical Role fan art, creation, cosplay, the whole encyclopedia of Crit Role fandom.
Oh, yeah, just for reference as well, because I've never watched Critical Role because I've just always seen it as a huge undertaking. How many hours of content do you think there is in the stuff that you've been watching?
It is a good question. Each episode, I believe, is about 4 hours and change, so it's a lot, but you could say I have given up, and I listen now exclusively at 1.5x.
Yeah, you speed it up. I think that's a great way to get that content quickly, right?
If you had Matthew Mercer or Marisha Ray or Sam Riegel or Travis Willingham or any of the gang speaking at normal voice, like at a con or on I was happening to catch something live video on demand, I would be thoroughly confused because I just understand their voices as slightly accelerated, and that's all I know. I will just add two last things in my dungeon crawl, if I may.
Oh, please do.
C-Team Raps is working on another album.
Yes.
The Acquisitions Incorporated C-Team, now immortalized in game form in the Neverwinter DLC update, has gone through a whole new campaign arc, and it's given us so much amazing content to hopefully not pervert or destroy by rapping really nerdy about it. So we probably have, I'd say, for Rough Tracks, a little bit of artwork, and our resident beatmaster, Casey Drones, is going to finish his most recent stint playing a featured role in a Stephen Sondheim musical to finish writing beats for us again. So I'm excited for that.
We're going to be talking about fan art and the process that goes behind it, and because everyone on this stream right at this very moment has been involved in different fan projects. And so that's why we thought that would be a really cool thing to talk about. And so I'm going to poke at Embers a little bit to talk about the process that goes on behind D&D raps, even though I see it a little bit.
Sure. Well, I'm going to stick around so I can get poked.
Oh, good. My dungeon crawl, I got two. I'm going to do one quick that is not fan art based, and then I'm going to do one that is entirely fan art based. For the people who are not aware, I am a teacher. I run a Dungeons and Dragons club at my school. It is my second year doing it right now, and I've been in world building mode for the past month and a bit. And Dale Kingsmill on YouTube has this very, very incredible video about how she goes about creating her worlds and creating the NPCs who fit in towns specifically. And so that was a really nice start off point for me. And I just really needed to shout out that, because if you haven't seen it and you're building places and you want to know ways that you can fill it with the people that are necessary and that also make sense for that place, she's got it. She's got it good. And the dungeon crawl for me that has to do with fan art is like Embers. I am behind on my Critical Role, but I'm a huge fan, and I am also in Spoiler World. But just a few podcasts ago, I heard about something that their fandom did, which was a sketchbook that traveled around the world. And basically what happened is that an artist, for anyone who doesn't know, sent a sketchbook to other well-renowned artists within their community. And without letting it known in the slightest to the cast, they filled it top to bottom with incredible art from season 1. And it finally got there at season 2. And hopefully we can show a link of that, but it is phenomenal.
Oh yeah, this looks amazing. Something I was really getting into was seeing all the fan art come in via Twitter, because now that Twitter's changed its algorithm and you get a lot of stuff that people have just pressed like on rather than retweet into your timeline. Mm-hmm. So I found that after a game I've been watching each week, I'd really want to go into the hashtag for that particular game. And you see all sorts of amazing stuff on there from people who just don't have many followers. And I found that Twitter has a sort of inverse sharing algorithm compared to Reddit. Because Reddit, you can post something and people who just browse the news section will upvote it, regardless of what your username is, because they've gone to this certain space to be able to see the art that's on there.
Totally.
Whereas on Twitter, the most amazing art could get posted on there. But if it's to an account with no followers, then it's never going to get seen by anyone, unless there's people on there going there who have already got followers to see it and then either like it or comment or retweet to their timeline. So it was that sort of realization that the only way to kind of grow that community sense of art is to do it yourself. You just stop, you need to stop expecting it to just come to you, and you need to be the person who goes out there and sees a bit of art with no numbers underneath it, and then be the first one to be clicking on those.
Yeah, I fully agree, Coffee. It's or John, sorry, I was using your...
No, he was good. I'm good.
Good. Twitter's a tough place for that, because you do need to start following the hashtags. And it does seem that communities start building up their own artists. So there is a certain momentum that people seem to have to get under themselves a little bit. But it's cool. What I really like about fandoms is that there is this certain... there is a certain amount of love that kind of grows. You see art that you love and you share it, and then you share it more. And so I really hope that those art like you're doing gets that first share and that first like, and it just flows out into the community to build up that love around that stream or that game or anything like that.
Yeah, because I don't think there's really any worse feeling than doing something you're really proud of, putting it out there, and it's just silence.
And it's really hard. I think that, I don't know, speaking from my own this is just for my own anecdotal self. There's a lot of imposter syndrome sense when you create something and you think you might share it into this world where you're used to seeing just absolutely incredible artwork. And especially if you're new, and especially if you create an account that has a little bit of a separation from your own personal identity, the choice to share that is hard. And then seeing it just share and eventually fly off into the space of Twitter is also hard. And yet I keep seeing, Coffee, to your point, I keep on seeing incredible art from new accounts or accounts that have posted very little or accounts that have very few followers. And it's remarkable. And I sort of am seeing the glasses half full that I feel lucky I get to see that at all.
Yeah, it makes you think as well, like there's definitely stuff out there that no one's seen that probably got posted years ago that just never got shoved to a front page or to people's timelines.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
The best is still out there and it's still unseen.
It's true. I like, there was an account called Cleric Confessor who is creating a Tumblr, and they have begun to reemerge. And this person in season 1, and for anyone who is on the stream chat right now who doesn't know us, the reason we all coalesce together is because we are fans and we are part of the fandom community of Acquisition Incorporated, Penny Arcade's C Team. And so that person was collecting all of the stuff in a Tumblr, which was a really great way that you could find things that might have become lost in the season of whatever is new on Twitter. A community member has to set that up. And so I just wanted to say an opportunity to thank you to Cleric Confessor for doing that, because it exposed me at least to a lot of things that I just wouldn't have seen.
I would like to crawl. All right. Hopefully that fixed things, but it has been a hot minute since I have been on Insight Check. Thank you for holding down the fort, ladies and gentlemen. I went to PAX West earlier this month and have not been on to speak about it. Shall we?
Please tell me, like,
please.
I was living vicariously through
that.
you. Oh, John, tell me about it, right? Like,
Guys, I got to meet the coolest frickin' people. The coolest people. And I'm a little introverted, so it can be a little bit overwhelming at times. So I don't think I got to appreciate these people the way that they deserve to be appreciated. So if I met you and you came and said hi to me at PAX, you're my favorite person. Don't tell the other one, but you're my favorite. Seriously. PAX was great. I did another Brahma cosplay this year. It took a while. I do about one cosplay a year. I got to see the Ack Inc. live show, and Czar of Happiness on Twitter. He does amazing minis. He did this mini for the Acquisitions Incorporated live show that just, like, seriously, you could move into this place.
Oh, the apothecary, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes. And actually, I kind of like the guy's landscaping too. And like the little bird nest, this is just insane. I want to
keep going through those photos because there were such good, like, small details. Yeah, there's a bird's nest up in the brook. There's a little bird box in the tree downstairs.
Yeah, all of this, and like just the little things in the windows.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll just keep ignorantly pushing forward, I guess. Sometimes on this show,
story of my life,
we answer questions. Yeah, that's the Lipacheski story for sure. And this might be one of those times. So there are a few different kinds of questions that we are going to try and tackle within our 2 hour, less than that window now. Because first we want to talk about, I want to talk to the people that I have here right now about their fandom experience, how they got started, and why, and just the different cool stuff that they've done. And then I want to talk about, well, then there were some questions that some good friends left us on Twitter, and then maybe we'll get in our chat right now filled with, I'm going to say, the most attractive people on the internet. So if you're not in the chat right now, I'm sorry, you might just be a B+. Everyone in here, straight A's, but B's not bad.
And this is from a teacher, so it counts in your permanent record.
That meets curriculum expectation. You know what? You've done everything that you were meaning to do. There's a little bit of room to grow, but that's what we hope for, right? So it's good. And I want to highlight some community stuff, so I'm really hoping we can do that. And then finally, as my voice gets higher, we put on that like for like, if you like this, I'll answer X amount of questions thing on here. And we got over 20 likes, so maybe we will be able to go through that.
And how long did that take?
That just took a weekend, not even a weekend. That just took a little bit of time. People were very kind to us.
Oh yeah, that shot up.
Yeah. We got good people.
On the show, you usually answer about maybe 2 or 3 questions an episode, and there's 20 on there. So
we're gonna have to get our acts together.
Lightning round.
So let's start. Okay, where I want to start is I want to talk to the people here about their cosplay, and El Ninja's going to be first because she's the first on my list. So El Ninja, I hope that's okay. And if not, you can say bananas, and I'll move on because that's our safe word, ladies and gentlemen. And so
it is, and it's ironic because I'm allergic.
Yeah,
to them,
I forgot about that. You and I had this conversation already.
So it's like when something goes horribly awry. I'm okay with that. Anyways, the more you know about a ninja cupcake.
I see that. That star with like the shines behind it.
Yeah, the PSA star wipe. The more you know.
Now we're talking. El Ninja, when did you get into cosplay? Like, what was that moment that you decided this was something that you wanted to do at cons?
I, growing up, had maybe a little bit of a unique childhood. My mama, my mom's mom, was a seamstress.
Oh, cool.
So I got a Singer Featherweight, which is like an old antique Singer, when I was like 6.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the one that I use to this day. And she taught me how to sew. Like, I made my junior prom dress and got all kinds of shit for it. Like, I was the weird kid, and all of that was really like squished, and I couldn't be who I wanted to be. And I met my current husband, who, ladies, when you go nerd, you don't go back. That's just that is the way it works.
I love it.
So I've been sewing for a really, really long time, and I met my husband, and I had never been to PAX, and I started going to PAX 4 years ago. Bananas. That's just for shiny. And the first PAX I was going to, I was like, you know what? Let's do something fun. And I've always been a big fan of The Legend of Zelda and just the classic video games, that kind of stuff. So my first cosplay, let me see if I can get the picture of it here. That's, we're gonna go through a lot of things.
I love it.
Oh, let's take it back.
Oh man, that's the most recent one.
This Link was my first cosplay 4 years ago.
Oh, cool.
And I used it, oh gosh, I had some actual professional photos of it, and I didn't think to grab them. So that was my first one. And I actually, when I walked through the door at my first PAX, I got maybe 20 feet in, and someone jumped up off of a chair and ran to me and was so excited that I was the first crossplay that they had seen, and were so excited about my costume. And I was like, well, that's really cool. And it wasn't super hard to make because there's really not a whole lot to it. But I loved it, and I actually wore it for Halloween. I was a vet tech for like 8 years, so I actually went to work in this. And this is my chicken Betty, because we all know how much Link loves chickens. And Betty went with me to the Microsoft campus here in Redmond on Halloween, and I got to run around with a chicken dressed as Link on Halloween. It was like the best thing ever.
I love it.
That's perfect.
And then the next year, my husband had spent time playing The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt. And if you guys haven't played that game, it is freaking bomb.
Hunt's gone wild.
I decided I was going to do a Ciri. And I hand-pressed each part of her belt. And I spent probably 6 to 8 months on this cosplay, since it was only my second one. And it took forever, but I loved it, and I still love it.
So was that because you were just learning those skills then, and it was all new? Like, if you were to make that right now, do you think you could do it in a lot less time. Because I see a lot of makers and they seem to go from concept to a finished or like prototype outfit really, really quickly. And have you found that your skills have just gotten way and way better? Because I can tell with that Brahma one recently that's like really top notch.
I think it gets a little bit better. The problem with the Siri is that when I can get this picture to load, I don't have a full picture, but I did a full sword that came up to like my ribcage, and I'm 5'9", so this was quite long. The fabrication and just the amount of time that it took to put into everything and the dry time, it took a long time. I could probably do it faster now because I was working 6-7 days a week at the time. So trying to do it in my off time was what slowed me down, I think. So I did Siri. I'm going to have to remake the pants, but she will come back.
Nice.
And people, I think I got started with D&D when I started, and I did this cosplay that everyone seems to, if you know me, this is usually how you started to get to know me. I did a Brahma for the C team in 2017.
Oh, yeah.
I got to meet my now friend, Amy T. Falcone, who, guys, she's incredible. She also does the Insight Check social media branding in Chibis. She's on Twitch. You should see her too as well.
P.S. Kakra.
That good bird sound.
So, this was really cool. It was a lot of fun. I even got to give Miss Amy a missive. And in the Dinar suit is at something like that on Twitter. So you could always give him a follow as well.
For our podcast listeners, I just want to say that everything that we are posting now, everything we're talking about now that our incredible live audience is seeing at their peak of attractiveness, we are going to be posting on Twitter later. I am personally planning to make one of those moments where all of the links that we are talking about today in part 1 of our 2-part live play series that is going to have as much art that we talk about. So I'm going to hope that it'll be all there and you can see it and enjoy it from the comfort of your own home. And maybe you can donate retroactively.
Yes. This year I got to meet everyone and I was in the wedding Brahma, which honestly, this one did not take me but maybe a week-ish to put together, but it took me months to conceptualize. A lot of the fan art that came out, I use as inspiration because everything that you love and pour your heart into gets my juices going. So this is a piece by Nurse Normal that I had already had ideas in my head, and when she did this, I was like, oh yeah. Funny story about this cosplay is I thought it was really cool and I felt really, really overwhelmed and I didn't think I wanted to undertake it. And then I happened to be at a flower and garden show with Amy the Falcon herself. We found this cute little headband with these little antlers on it. And she's like, just look, it'd be perfect for it. And I'm like, oh, that's so cute.
Well, shit,
but
I
I'm not
guess
going
I
to do that
gotta
cosplay. Yep, that's exactly what happened. So I took a while and did that. I actually I redid my kitchen last year. And when I was dyeing the skirt portion of my dress, I may or may not have dyed some of my cabinets red.
like just because you're like, hey, it's a good look, I'm gonna stick with it forever.
Cosplay collateral damage.
The steam.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, for people seeing this photo right now, that is exactly what Jerry described. Her dress is where fall meets winter, and
the descriptions of it come out of the show. Like, I have a hard time thinking that anyone else has a different vision in their head of what everyone else is thinking at the same time.
So it took me a while to do it all, but it was certainly a really cool cosplay.
Incredible.
Yeah, you could say that. You could say a lot more. It was fucking incredible.
One word in a continuum I would describe that cosplay. It
was stunning. And the pictures of El Ninja Cupcake and Nurse Normal just kind of meeting, and Ninja, I think you described how you were explaining the fade and kind of the gradient as you get to the bottom of the dress. That to me, even though it was just a little captured moment in the span of a humongous PAX, like that to me was just it's so magic when a creator can see how their work has inspired another creator to make something new and reimagined and kind of repurposed, but in a totally different medium. It's really cool.
That's just what's perfect about all these projects. That it's always seems to be I say unlikely collaborations, but surely they're likely when a load of creative people get together and just have good ideas about stuff.
Yes, well said.
Fandoms are dope for that very reason, because it's just like the games itself we all watch them. It's very rare that you watch these with people. You might watch them with a friend. Actually, Shiny, who you will hear later in part 2, actually went to a live watching in Seattle with a bunch of people. But then you go online and then you find all these incredible people, and the fandom almost builds up around the art. Right? Like, we all love the show and we tweet about it, but then the art is that propellant that kind of keeps people interested, and we build our own kind of shorthand, and we talk about people who then become important to us because they just make something fantastic. And I remember, Ninja, I remember the moment of seeing your cosplay and hearing Amy talk about it. And like, this was before I could be honored to say that I was friends with like you and Air, and the fact that like Air had written like it, that there was a missive that was written and sent to her, and like that was just like a holy crap moment for me. Okay, so my question before we move on is like, what is it like now that you have become a known name within a certain fandom, and then you get to meet these people live, right? Like, what's that experience like?
It's really freaking weird.
That is exactly correct.
Yeah, I'm sure that John has similar instances, because like I see Coffee Robot and I'm like,
really? Am I one of those people?
Oh, you're totally one of those people, man. Like,
seriously, dude.
Maybe that's part of the answer.
Dumb
Maybe
pictures.
for a while.
Yeah, man. No, like this year was actually kind of interesting. There's an amazing young lady, McBoots.
Yeah,
Irish,
she's
yeah.
fan.
Yes,
Irish,
yes,
yeah.
She is pretty spectacular. She had posted on Twitter, she's like, I want to meet El Ninja Cupcake and I want to get her autograph. And I'm like, why does anybody want my autograph? It's like, what the heck is this? I have friends that most of the Insight checkers are East Coast. I think I'm odd man out West Coast. And that's okay. I'll keep my coast.
No. Like in the Shadowed Council Discord, have you been on the live meetups thread?
I haven't.
Oh man, because Cal set up. I didn't know you could do this. You can set up a Google Maps document where anyone can add pins to it, and they've gotten everyone to add their little position to it. And there's a really good split. So I would go on there later and see if there's anyone around near you. I think you're going to be surprised. Like, it is 50-50.
Yeah, West Coast, West Coast.
East Coast, East
I know
Coast.
there's people out here. I've gotten to meet quite a few amazing people. I mean, like I could drop names all day long, but the love in the Shadow Council does not end. At the end of the day, everybody's just people, and it's kind of weird when people start to know who I am, because I'm just me, you know?
Totally.
Yeah, it's kind of like I wasn't ready for that to be an event. That was just going to be person A talk to person B, person A and person B enjoy. The end.
Well, it's going back to something you said earlier, Leaf, about the art kind of spurring these things on, and kind of people coming together around the art as well as just for show. Because if the show existed in isolation, that's okay. Like, I'm sure there's loads of people who just watch it and then close it and then don't interact with any of this stuff. But I'm interested in the motivation behind why a lot of people do these things.
Totally.
And not in a sort of competitive way, but like I was talking with Robin earlier about this, and there is a sort of thing where you see someone do something amazing and you're like, well, I can't get left behind, so my next thing's got to be just as good as that, or if not better. And then it's this sort of leapfrog situation where the person behind goes in front, and then you just keep going and going and going until there's even more material that you can just do stuff with, and then people meet each other and people do collaborations, and just all this stuff builds and builds and builds.
I would say, Coffee, I actually wanted to turn your own question on yourself, because you've done a tremendous amount of content creation for the Acquisitions Incorporated community, and you've done 3D modeling for characters in the C team, and you've collaborated with other artists to do pieces of that. How has that evolved for you? So I mean, I don't know how much of your work prior to, when we first intersected in this fan community, but in the world of Acquisitions Incorporated and C Team, as you started to create content to share and collaborated with others, what was that evolution like for you?
genuinely don't know how to describe that other than natural. Because I'd say prior to C Team, I wasn't really involved with that many online communities. I had certain groups of friends who I'd maybe play games with and maybe be on forums with, but it wasn't a sort of thing focused around an object in a way that this is. I described it earlier when I posted this very strange Dinar Gaston picture.
Yeah,
because the stuff that I typically have made, just looking through a folder of pictures that I've got here, has always just been ideas that I've just really quickly had, maybe watching an episode or listening to something that someone's done, and just not being able to put it out of my head until I've done it. Like it's not been some sort of ideal, like, oh, I want people to see this, or oh, I want to get popular with this thing. It is like I am in bed at 1 a.m. in the morning thinking, okay, if I don't get up and do this stupid Photoshop, then I'm not going to be able to sleep because I'm just over workshopping it in my head.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
And I think that's where like the first GIF I did came from, because it was I noticed during an episode that Jerry said the word green flame and did this little hand motion. So I was like, get up and find the VOD of that and scrub and screen record and do all the stuff surrounding that. And then I get some likes on Twitter and you're like, oh yeah, maybe that's something I'll look out for next episode. And then that was back in April.
Like, you just went wild on GIFs because they were so well received, and all of a sudden it became a shorthand for an entire community. So what's it like to see other people commenting on stuff within like the small community, like the community that were a part of the Shadow Council? I shouldn't say small, then using things that you've created.
It's sort of a surprise, but it isn't when it comes up, because GIFs are so like shareable anyway. All you've got to do is like stick a Google Drive's image thing on there, and then it'll naturally pop up occasionally. But it's always nice to see. But it's always kind of scary as well, because I'm not going to say I've dug myself into a hole, because it's a hole that I like. But it is totally a sort of, okay, now I need to kind of up my own game on this. I'm sort of competing with myself every time I make a new batch from an episode.
It's like you dug yourself this hole and it's going to be a swimming pool, but you're like, now I got to fill it in. And then I got to go get like 500 gallons of water. Yep. And then I got to go get an inflatable swan.
And when you think you're finally happy with the swimming pool, you've got to scrap the swimming pool and start again and make it into a military base with all kitted out with tanks and guns. Well, it's just this whole different thing. So it's like I was saying earlier about trying to surpass other people who are making good stuff. You're in that competition with yourself as well. Yes.
Good point.
I heard from Embers, actually, that you worked in tandem with Nurse Normal, who has gotten the unofficial title of unofficial artist for the C-Team community. How did that happen? Like, what did that process begin?
So this was back during the time where pretty much every week there was an amazing comic coming out, which really brought feels, because it was like she's got this great cinematic style where she'll always imagine a scene as a series of stills that would have been shot and those in. And I really liked her design on Dinar, because like C-Team official art, it's all Chris Straub's like cute little chibi ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But these were brought in something else. And I was already thinking, because for work I use a program called Cinema 4D, and I just started getting back into doing a lot more 3D work in the office. I thought, okay, I've got to learn all the tools that were within this. And one of the things I've never properly touched is the character like rigging and building system for those. Because one of the main things that spurs you on in a project is having an audience. Like if there's someone who is like constantly being able to give you little tips and pointers and say, oh yeah, this is working, this isn't working, that's always useful. So I was like, okay, this is the sort of perfect storm of something that I really like, something that I know other people like, and a bit of software I want to learn. So I'd hit her up on Twitter and I was just like, oh, hey, could I like ask a really cheeky favor and get a front, side and back of those? And within about an hour, she'd drawn them up, which is amazing.
That's so cool.
And then it just went from there. So that was like the next few months building this model off and on in the evenings.
It is like, I loved watching your process, because you were also really, really good at kind of tweeting out the process that you had been doing. Like first we saw, like we've seen it a little bit on chat already. We saw like your renders, we saw your animations that you were creating. You gave us these really nice 360 views of what you were doing and zoom ins on the sword. And it was a kind of like, when I think of fandom art, like physical art, like drawings and cosplay are the first things that I think about. And then this was something wholly new, which was just really amazing to watch you create this thing that I couldn't have even conceptualized. Like, I said this, I tweeted this at you, but I just want to play that video game, right? Like, I just want to hop into that character and just slash around and vomit poison, right? Like, that's just all I want to do.
Oh, well, there's definitely some people in the fandom who can make that a reality, I reckon. Maybe Jay Brooks, but oh man, that'll be a much bigger undertaking than what this was. That's hard to kind of quantify in the terms of posting such a long thing. Because when you see art that people have posted, like, we all know that art streams are a thing where you go onto Twitch and see someone draw a comic or paint a piece of art. Mm-hmm. But like, in those, there doesn't really seem to be this sort of very in-between process. Like, maybe you've got the sketch layer, and then you've got the inks, and then you've got all the colour, and then that's it. Whereas this was over the course of months and months, just doing bits and bobs where I could see it, and it had these little kind of natural stopping points where you're like, okay, I'm done modelling this foot for the evening.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So now I can show you a foot online, and people are like, oh, yeah, that's a good
This
foot.
is a foot.
And especially when you're learning along with it as well. So it's always exciting to share.
Well, I'm really glad you did. I recently reached out to Nurse Normal to ask her for some of those source illustrations for a project that I'm going to start working on for PAX East.
And why don't we take this opportunity actually to switch this searchlight of incredibleness onto you, Embers. You have done a whole bunch of different things. You really spread your wings out on this one. Inside the Insight Check community, or the checkers, we have this inside joke that Embers is basically the best of us congealed into one human form. And you've done rap. You've done, it sounds like you're doing some art. You've done an incredible cosplay yourself. How did you get started? Like, what was your decision and your process in the different kind of fan creations that you've made?
So the complete answer is, when I grew up the child of a jazz singer and a poet, and my brother's an opera singer. And when I was young, I had my own studio space, and I was a fine artist, and I had shows and I did commissions, and that's what I thought my life was going to be. And then I became a neuroscientist, and now I am here with this weird hodgepodge background of engineering, fine arts, and graphic design. So,
just, oh my God, that's so cool.
So then I started reading Penny Arcade while I was at MIT in 2000 or 2001. Yeah. And there was something like, that was a very isolated time for me. And to be able to find something that felt like I was experiencing these sort of isolated, introverted lives of two other people was really kind of powerful. So since then, I've been kind of a devotee of the Horkham's Krahulik mashups, and then I started playing D&D when I was in 1994, because my Magic the Gathering group started playing.
Nice.
Started getting at TSR, so I jumped back in around 5th edition, and I started kind of listening to the very first Acquisitions Incorporated A-Team podcast, because I really liked Penny Arcade. And it always felt like they were contributing a lot to me, and I was getting it all for free. And you can be a subscriber now, but back then you couldn't. And so I felt like I had these pent-up years of appreciation, gratitude, and really creative inspiration. And so they started to find outlets almost accidentally. Mm-hmm. And as soon as Jerry started doing his summaries in verse at the end of the live shows, I kind of started to get that bug, right? Like, I started to write in my own notebooks at home. I started to do verses inspired by characters in game or out of game.
I can see why, because those felt like really special when it happened, because like the show was over and then you get this. Jerry stands up, goes to the front of the stage, and it just comes out.
It's electric. Mm-hmm. It really, and this is for me only listening to it on a podcast. It still felt electric. And then I met Air, who you'll hear later in our stream. And he has a gift, and I really admire it. And I like to think of myself as someone who can occasionally find someone who has this kind of gift and like be the catalyst and pour gasoline on it a little bit. So I started being like, hey, let's write, or let's collaborate. Or I would just at him on Twitter when he did a verse, and I would do a verse, and then I would try and draw him out. I would try to get another verse from him.
Oh my God, I loved that so much.
I remember that. Yeah, that's like, yes,
that lyrical egging.
Yeah. And so I guess I should say I've also in the past done oddball side projects. Like I've made a 50-page graphic novel about a pirate and a ninja solving crime with a gorilla. And
amazing.
So I was like, this is where the next project should be. And I don't know what it is, and I don't know what I can do, but I bet if I stoke the flames of a lot of these people who are rhyming on Twitter about Acquisitions Incorporated, I bet we can get something. And so we made a group, and I was like, guys, let's do a track. Let's make an actual track, a real, legit, mastered MP3 that you could put on SoundCloud if you wanted, that has a real beat behind it, not a beat that you get from something else. But I will go find somebody. I had a ringer at this time, but I will go find someone who will make a beat. They'll make an audio track for us to rap over. Let's do it. And people are like, yeah, I'd love to. We got a whole bunch of folks in, and there's a lot of percolating of ideas. And as is always the case, 100% of the time, the steam gets a little lost. You lose a little bit of that momentum and a little bit of that energy. I knew it was going to happen. And so when it did, I made sure I already had my track ready, and I made sure that I was always there. I would always be there to say, look, real life gets in the way. That's okay. Look, it feels stressful. Take a step back. That's okay.
Yeah.
This project will get done. And then I started to make big promises I didn't know if I could keep. I was like, I bet I could get Jerry on this thing. I bet I could get Tycho. I will get Tycho on this thing, on this track.
And then you freaking did it. Like, I am talking, I was blessed with getting the behind the scenes look at this. And for the people who are listening to this for the first time or on our chat, like we had a Discord where we got myself and Lars and Air, and then we got Kika, and then we got Robin in there.
Air. And Robin.
And we got Maxwell in there. And like this was months. This was months of doing. And it was all like Embers was the reason that this happened. Like I can't.
And then I reached out to Eliscanius, Eric Alloway, because he was an incredible artist. I reached out to Coffee because he just did some incredible art for, now we know, out of his own compulsive nature. And I reached out to Nurse, and I was like, Nurse, would you be okay with doing this? And Nurse is the best of us. Ethically, she was like, you're not going to sell this, right? I was like, no, this is a gift to the cast, because since 2001, they've been giving me encouragement, support, solace, emotional strength. This is what I'm going to give them. And I can't get it to Mike Krahulik yet. I'll get to him someday, but I can give this to Tycho. I can give this to Kate. I can give this to Amy, Ryan, Chris, and the crew. We can do this for them, and they might roll their eyes at it, but this is something that they're going to see the time went into this, the energy went into this, and the love went into this. And that was really the fundamental motivator. I was like, I can't let C-Team Raps down by letting Tycho get away, even though he was getting sick. He's incredibly busy. I was cold emailing the guy, but I was like, I have to do this. I have to do this for them. And then with the team, I was like, we have to get this album made. We have to get this album made for the cast. Mm-hmm. So I was just trying to pull the strings together. And I kind of decided, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this once. We're going to do it right. We might not get to do it again. So let's make an actual physical CD, as if people have CD players anymore. And let's make a flash drive that's printed with their characters as envisioned by Nurse Normal. Let's get that to them. Let's get them physical media to show that, they mean a lot to us.
Mm-hmm. I had a bunch of art that I wanted to talk about, but, time hasn't allowed. So I'm going to create a moment where I'm going to highlight all of the things about communities in general that have been great art-wise that I think are of value, so that'll come later.
Yes.
Lars asked, what is the biggest skill or facility that you don't have and you want for your fan projects? And he talks about electronics, coding, writing, metalworking, singing, and what would help you make it, and like what would help you make it even more rad? So basically, like, what are you lacking and what do you think would make it, what you do, better?
It's hard for me to answer because I feel like what I do is such a tiny piece of the finished products that I've been a part of. So it's almost as if I think about what I need and it's all around me in the people and the fan communities that I'm a part of. So that's why it's challenging for me to answer. I guess the one thing I could say is instrumental musical accompaniment. That's yeah. My at this day and age, that is my dream, and I know it's out there. So maybe it's just a matter of connecting the right dots.
For sure. I think having a bit of those beat making abilities a little bit in my back pocket. So we relied really hard on Casey Drones, which we are so thankful for the time and effort that he put in. Basically, he was the reason that we got to make the album sound the way that it sounded. And so it would be really cool to be able to build that a little bit, not in an attempt to do what he does, but just even kind of ease the load a little bit, right? Like spread it out, you know?
Well, that was one of the great things about forming a group, which seemed like it had an endless number of people in it. Is that you can rely on the people who've got the expertise to be doing the bits that you know that they're good at, and that just brings the level of it, like the overall quality of your products up for like everyone's part as well.
Yeah, for me, I wound up feeling more like a project manager than a creative contributor. It was just kind of making sure that I saw, I had this vision of a final project of this physical CD thing, and there was no lack of talent or energy or contribution. So it was just kind of like making sure that people understood that we were making progress, things were happening, and we could take the time we needed not to feel the pressure, because I feel like the pressure can sometimes burn you out, because many of us have our day jobs and day lives, and this is something that we do for fun, for the joy of it. And if it becomes burdensome, that can be hard.
All right. You know what, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us for this special week's episode of Insight Check Podcast. We would like to extend our thanks to Vinswept, who is our normal intro and outro music, but today we had the good, the one, the only C-Team Raps. For our intro music, we will have Vinswept for the outro music. It is called Never Stand Alone. And the incredible Amy T. Falcone for our social media branding and chibi faces. Without her, we wouldn't have faces. And that might be disturbing to small children.
People look at you weird when you don't have faces.
Turns out.
Yeah, this is true.
And you don't look at them all because you don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So you'll never know.
If you would like to have your questions answered, please tweet us at InsightCheckPod or hashtag InsightCheck. You are welcome to find us on Podbean or on iTunes. If you enjoy the podcast, please feel free to give us ratings and reviews. We love you so much. You're the best. We were answering your cues from our collective A's.
This
was
Insight. John, say check.
Check.
Yeah!
I know the podcast. I know to say check at the end.
Of course you do. You're the guest. This is just for the live audience. So, Embers, I was wondering if now would be a time that we might actually do the thing that we were going to say that we were going to do.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Now, could you give a little bit of an intro as to the characters of our inspiration?
Oh, yes. So because we are C-Team fans, there are these two lover goddesses, Maliki and Malith, and they are...
This is great. Keep going. I'm just going to start dry heaving in the background.
I'm just going to puke. I'm going to puke my guts out. They are lover goddesses, and one of them, Malith, was... they're both a part of Walnut, which is Amy T. Falcone's, I'm not nervous, backstory. And one of them, they thought just disappeared. And so she was exiled from their grove. What they found out later in season 1, spoilers, was that she was actually abducted by this meat and mouths interloper patron that Crithris Draub, one of the other characters, has been forced to kind of get his power from.
Also, Amy Falcone asked for this after I DM'd her once she got the first album. She said that she would love to hear something like this. I hope this lives up to that expectation, and I hope it lives up to the names of Maliki and Malith. Interloper goddess in the elven pantheon. Rangers and druids come and check out my Patreon, cause I'm the forest goddess, there ain't none higher. Sucker demigods bowing to my fine dryads. Wanna get to know me? Let a deity explain. Got the dopest drow drizz, straight wearing my chain. Biz is chillin', living in a nut like it's my main. Tearing holes through Tiamat like beef chow mein.
Cast out from the grove, but I'm still freaking famous. Dangerous, Drew tried to forget what my name is. Cause a young nut, you can finally say this. Call me Big M, the grove mother loving Malith. How could y'all think that I'd betray this single horn beauty that I'm dreaming to lay with? Telling y'all now this ain't some fatress. She a holy temple and you know I pray, sis.
This heart of my heart.
You better come find me.
I could die of this pain.
Don't be splitting the party.
Scar leaves soul and trunk.
You must come find me.
Why you casting me away?
Thought the gods had it easy.
Malith, let me get to it. I'm not gonna pander. Let's hit the town with EPA propaganda.
Blowing up the place, Nema's ears dropped in tandem. Taking back the wood, forest friends fandom.
To the morning light with my main wingman Lathander. Investing in our future like a rich investment banker.
Grove, keep ya in my arms till the morning light clambers. Once more into deep with my heart's commander.
Anger tearing down the city's feeding coriander. Forest souls weigh on my spirit like an anchor.
Girl, one day we'll find that nut and we should thank her. I'm sure she's got some questions that we could answer. Coming to a union that's not gonna splinter. Falling into you like autumn meets winter.
So Malith, you and me come and sail through any weather, cause things meant to be together should be together.
The blood in my heart.
Yo, you better find me.
Don't cast me away.
Don't just split the party.
I don't care how far.
You must find me.
What I just can't explain.
Thought gods had it easy.
Oh my god, it happened. We're done.
That was freaking fire, you guys.
I had no idea that was going to happen. That's amazing.
Oh,
that is